Are you a racist? Do you hate Mexicans? The media calls us racist for wanting to build Trump's wall. They censor us, but it doesn't change the truth. Joe Biden's open border is killing Ohioans, with more illegal drugs and more Democrat voters pouring into this country. This issue is personal. I nearly lost my mother to the poison coming across our border. No child should grow up an orphan. I'm JD Vance, and I approve this message because whatever they call us, we will put America first.
JD Vance kissed enough ass to be chosen as Donald Trump's running mate. We're going to talk about who JD Vance is on this watch list.
The news we have been waiting for throughout the day has just been made. This is an announcement on Truth Social by former President Trump. He has selected Ohio Senator J.D. Vance as his vice presidential pick, and this is what he writes. After lengthy deliberation and thought, and considering the tremendous talents of many others, I have decided that the person best suited to assume the position of Vice President of the United States is J.D. Vance of the great state of Ohio.
Did y'all notice the wording Trump used when announcing J.D. Vance won this season of the VP Apprentice? He wrote, the person best suited to assume the position of vice president. It's because he's always made sure to point out that Vance assumes the position every time without even being told to.
And then the New York Times did a fake story today, big front page, that J.D. wasn't sure if he wanted my support. J.D. is kissing my ass. He wants my support. So I'm 18 points up. If I was 18 points down, he wouldn't want my support. No, these are fake people. These are dishonest. These are very dishonest people.
So how good of an ass kisser is J.D. Vance? Because many Republicans participated in the normal exercises to show Trump that they're willing to sacrifice the two principles that they have left to assist him in doing whatever the hell he wants. The Red Tie Brigade recited the same weaponized justice system lines outside of his New York trial and lied about the utopia that they claimed existed during Trump's term in office. But JD knew he had to be extreme.
This is one of the great tricks that I think the sexual revolution pulled on the American populace, which is this idea that, like, well, okay, these marriages were fundamentally, they were maybe even violent, but certainly they were unhappy. And so getting rid of them and making it easier for people to shift spouses like they change their underwear, that's going to make people happier in the long term. And maybe it worked out for the moms and dads, though I'm skeptical, but it really didn't work out for the kids of those marriages.
You know how that sexual revolution for adult women that have a brain tricked the country into believing that they should have the autonomy to divorce a guy that abuses and sometimes kills them. Because JD thinks that when a woman leaves her abusive husband, that their kids are traumatized. But they're totally fine with seeing their mother being beaten by their father, wishing that they could do something about it. That doesn't fuck up a kid's entire life at all. So JD checked one box: hatred for women in favor of controlling and abusive men.
You didn't answer the question I asked. Would you have certified the election results had you been vice president?
If I had been vice president, I would have told the states like Pennsylvania, Georgia, and so many others that we needed to have multiple slates of electors, and I think the U.S. Congress should have fought over it from there. That is the legitimate way to deal with an election that a lot of folks, including me, think had a lot of problems in 2020. I think that's what we should have done.
So it's very clear you would have done what Donald Trump asked you to do there, not what Vice President Mike Pence did.
Instead of respecting the country's well-established process for presidential elections, he'd ignore the system and place fake electors for a thin veil of legitimacy. So check box number 2, support of sham elections.
I think that what Trump should do, like if I was giving him one piece of advice, fire every single mid-level bureaucrat, every civil servant in the administrative state, replace them with our people. And when the courts, because you will get taken to court, and then when the courts stop you, stand before the country like Andrew Jackson did and say the Chief Justice has made his ruling, now let him enforce it.
Praise genocidal President Andrew Jackson and fill the government with incompetent loyalists whose only qualifications are to do the bidding of their authoritarian leader, so that eliminating Americans' rights happens seamlessly. Check box number 3, normalize and implement fascism. It's a playbook that's detailed in the now much talked about Project 2025, which J.D. Vance apparently lied effectively enough about having no affiliation with.
Take a look. We're in the process of taking this country back. No one in the audience should be despairing. No one should be discouraged. We ought to be really encouraged by what happened yesterday. We are in the process of the Second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be.
Do you support those calls for a revolution, and would political violence ever be justified?
Well, of course, political violence is never justified, Kristen. You'll have to ask the president of the Heritage Foundation to defend his remarks if you'd like to do that. I will say, look, the Heritage Foundation does a lot of good work. It does a lot of things that I disagree with, a lot of things that I agree with. Kristen, I certainly don't think political violence is justified. That's certainly actually not what I think that Kevin Roberts was saying to begin with. Again, I'm not going to be the person who serves as the spokesperson for the Heritage Foundation. I don't have any affiliation.
So he didn't think Kevin Roberts saying that MAGA's Second American Revolution will be bloodless if the left surrenders was a call for violence, and that he has no affiliation with Heritage. If only someone asked him what he thinks a revolution being bloody means, if not violent. And if he's got no affiliation with Heritage and Kevin Roberts, why Roberts said this about the news of him getting the VP nod.
We have confirmed news that Senator Vance is the vice presidential running mate. You will see a broad smile on my face because you may know that we're good friends. I will offer two comments about that. The first is, the entire list of names considered are great men and women, truly, all of them friends of Heritage. There, among them, though, was someone that privately we were really rooting for, and he's just been named the running mate. Why were we rooting for him? Not even because of politics and policy, but because of who he is.
No affiliation, but the bloodthirsty leader of the foundation that Republicans take policy positions from calls him a good friend and was privately rooting for him. The guy whose only concern is to implement a dictatorial Christian nationalist state was rooting for JD because despite his very well-documented disdain for Trump, he's proven to be the most willing to discard those negative beliefs and replace them with subserviency.
As somebody who doesn't like Trump, myself, the elites were right about Donald Trump, right? I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him.
He's the best president of my lifetime, and he revealed the corruption in this country like nobody else.
I can't stomach Trump. I think that he's noxious and is leading the white working class to a very dark place. I think that he was a good president. I think he made a lot of good decisions for people.
I take it you're not a Trump supporter from what I've read. Am I right? Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah. I didn't vote for Trump. All around, he was a great president. I'm 37 years old. Certainly the best president of my lifetime.
So my fear is, I think Donald Trump is not the right candidate for this group of voters. I think that this election is really having a negative effect, especially on the white working class, right? Because I think a lot of these grievances are legitimate, but what it's doing is it's giving people an excuse to point the finger at someone else. It's point the finger at Mexican immigrants or Chinese trade or the Democratic elites or whatever else. And sometimes these villains are legitimate. I think it's totally fair to say that the policy elites of the Democratic Party haven't been totally concerned about the white working class. But at the same time, fundamentally what's going on and what Donald Trump has done is change the focus of the white working class from a sort of engaged and constructive politics to a politics of pointing the finger.
He couldn't stand Trump and had real example as to why he hated him. So while JD was just given the prize that he worked so hard on his knees for, even some conservatives refused to act like they didn't just see how he got here.
Some people may look at this and remember what J.D. Vance used to say about Donald Trump. And he was a hardcore never-Trumper not very many years ago. And he reversed himself completely not that long ago. And, one of the things you worry about is when somebody's making a pick for a potential president if something happens to him, then you think, well, is this person, how did he get the job? Did he get it because he was really the best qualified to be president, or did he get it because he sucked up effectively to the nominee? People will have questions about that.